Hi Dan, good morning. How you doing?
Hi, Sam. Yeah, good morning. Really well, thanks. Really good. How are you?
Good. Yeah, great, thanks. Yeah, really good. Look, excited to have you on. Thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. Happy to be here. Thanks for
Good,
inviting me.
great. Yeah, no worries at all. So look, as part of the sort of Primis Presents podcast, which we launched a couple of months back, I decided to sort of spin up a series of episodes with people that I've met over the last 15 years in the space. Which is all around cracking the EMEA revenue code. When I sort of sat down and sort of mapped out sort of key people that I've met over the years, a few people really stood out, and obviously we're here today because you're on that list, Dan. So congratulations. Yeah.
Feel
No
honored.
worries. Yeah,
Very
yeah.
excited.
Praise indeed. Yeah, no, it's great. I guess it's important to give a little bit of context in terms of like why we're doing it and what we're doing it for. As I mentioned, my name's Simon Gregory. I'm a director here at Primis Talent. We're a recruitment firm based global sort of footprint, but based in London as headquarters. My role within the business is to sort of build out their software capability around go to market. My background is 15 years working within that space. I guess the reason we kind of spun up this podcast is because I was having a lot of conversations with people where they were sharing incredible insights about stuff they've built, stuff they've done, and stuff they've seen, challenges they've faced, and how they've overcome them, especially in terms of building building high performance teams. And we've got some other threads of things we're going to do around pre-sales and marketing and stuff in the future. But those conversations stopped and ended within those conversations. And I thought it was a kind of shame that we weren't bringing those to life, on the podcast idea, right? And we were enabling people to tune in, learn a little bit more about, some problems that they're probably facing within their businesses, and being able to hopefully, give a little bit back to the community and obviously to the space. So this first series is a series of 5 or 6 guests that we're inviting on that have VP, sort of RVP, MDGM sort of profiles who have got experience building ARR and teams across what is a fractional landscape or fragmented landscape in EMEA. And we do this over maybe a 30 or 40-minute session. So everybody has different challenges. Everybody's business is different, but hopefully we can kind of stitch together some common themes here. So, excited to kind of unpack that with Dan, who is currently let me just get this right, the SVP Revenue and Managing Director for Emarsys, which
Correct.
if you're in this world, is now part of SAP. A big business, very, very successful business, which I'm sure he's going to share a little bit more about under now the Goliath that is SAP's umbrella. But look, without further ado, let's just sort of jump into the body of the kind of meeting, right, and the pod, and just understand a little bit more. But for those that don't know you, Dan, can you share a little bit more about your story to date, please?
Yeah, sure. So, again, thanks for having me on. You mentioned my role, so I currently lead the SAP Emarsys teams for EMEA. I've been at Emarsys for about 14 years now. I started in the UK. I've had roles in APAC, and then moved back to EMEA a few years ago, and I had a few different roles in the region. One was looking after our DACH team. One was in a global role, and then I've been in the EMEA role since the start of this year. Yeah, I've seen the company grow from being around 100 people to around 900 people, being acquired by SAP about 5 years ago. And then all of the work that's gone on over the last few years as we're getting closer to working with SAP as well. So yeah, it's been a really interesting journey, really exciting. Often when we're interviewing, candidates ask, they just say, 14 years, it's a long time. And there's a lot of people who have been at Masters for 7 years, 6 years, 5 years, like quite a long tenure, generally speaking. And I think there's always been new things to do. There's always been things to keep me interested, keep me excited. There's always been new innovations as well. So I definitely haven't been bored over that time.
Yeah, I think if LinkedIn's correct, is it 7 different roles in that?
Yeah, you know better than me. You did your research. You might be right. I'll double check afterwards,
Yeah,
but that actually sounds about right. Every 2 years. Yeah, that's yeah, that
yeah,
sounds
yeah,
about.
yeah. And in terms of just background, you're coming in through more of a customer success background, I believe. Yeah.
Both actually. So I first
Yeah.
started in sales, and then I enjoyed sales. The company was fast growing, so I moved into a team lead role fairly early on, which was not necessarily not because I was great or was a good salesperson. It was just that we were fast growing and we needed
Yeah.
new people coming in. We needed to train new people. So there was a lot of opportunity that came from being in a company that was fast growing. And then we launched client success, and traditionally we had salespeople and we had account managers, and account managers did everything. They did all of the implementation, they were technical support, they were what's now client success, they did all the growth, renewals, everything. It was, they were superheroes. We tasked them with doing so much. We split, this was probably about 2014, split what was this account manager role into lots of different areas: implementation team, strategic services, technical support, and launched client success. And when I moved to Hong Kong, the role was really to grow the client success team there.
Mm.
And and that was great experience, actually. I like doing both. I like working across sales and client success. And I think a lot of revenue leaders have often come through sales only, which is fine. I think
Yeah.
it's normal. But I like that I've covered both and had quite hands-on roles with both, because I think fundamentally it means you understand the customers better. And I think I've become better as a salesperson since I've worked in client success, because you have direct access to the customers who are the stakeholders you're selling into. So yes, I've worked across both areas.
Yeah, yeah. I was going to actually, you kind of, you hit the nail on the head there. I was going to say having that full revenue life cycle empathy for the
Mm,
customer is something that's probably a little bit of a superpower
mm,
amongst many. But that's super cool. And look, before we move on from there, the APAC market. I know this is an EMEA
mm.
discussion. It's a bit of a crazy place, isn't it? With all the different languages, localization, everything. Was that an interesting learning curve?
It was a really interesting learning curve. It was very interesting for understanding different markets and also how to adapt to different
Mm,
markets. And
mm,
so, I had always worked in the UK. So
mm.
when I was coming to APAC, I had to leave sort of British ways of working and thinking and having conversations behind, because you're going into different markets and different teams. And I think it allows you to become a bit of a chameleon and to not always lean in with how you're used to doing things, and somewhat like being able to be flexible to how customers are communicating and how they want to engage with you. But yeah, really interesting market, very multifaceted, like each country's operates completely differently. So yeah, really fun. I loved working there. Really great
I bet.
market to work in.
In terms of milestones for your career, you obviously moving, you're an international guy, right? Milestones across the career that you've had today. What are those and why?
Yeah, I mean, I've touched on the two of them. I'd say the move into client success was a really great one, and also one
Mm,
that I didn't think would be as key as it ended up being. I always thought, staying sales, that's the best place to be, that's where all the money is. And in client success, I really loved it because it's about building relationships with customers, making sure they see value out of the technology they've invested in. So moving into client success was a really key development for me. I think being able to work overseas and to be able to work in different markets as well means that you need to be adaptable. And it's interesting, I've seen people over the years where they are from one market and they go into another market and they very much try to maintain their way of communicating, their way of behaving in the market that they're in. And you go into another market and it just doesn't work. Like, it's not how people communicate, it's not how they're used to working. So I think being in APAC meant that I became more flexible to different cultures and different ways of working. And it was very real experience in having to do that. That was key. And then, coming back to Europe, coming back to roles here, I had an interim role before my EMEA role, which was as GM for DACH.
yeah.
And that's a really key market for us. And it was a 6 month interim. We were making some changes. I needed to come in and to revamp the team and to get things back on track. And I really enjoyed that. I really loved it. It was a great role. Interim
Yeah.
roles are quite fun. You're getting things back on track. There's an honesty that you can have to being an interim role, because
Yeah.
it's not long term. You're not there forever. And we've got a really strong team there. So that was the step before the EMEA role. And it's great because that team's been so successful this year. We've won some really big global logos out of Germany. That was really a key milestone as well, of being able to be quite quick, going in, diagnosing, figuring out what you can fix now, figuring out what you need to leave behind, hiring the replacement, and then getting out. And doing that all in 6 months was intense, but it was really fun. Really enjoyed
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. I don't think I normally hear quick and Germany in the same in the same kind of breath. It's normally long, slow. Obviously, there's rewards there. I mean, the economy's massive, right? But certainly when we've been covering Germany as a topic with previous guests, there's always lots of nuance, lots of complexity. But it's great. I mean, the Emarsys in Germany are going great guns, aren't they? One of the top players, if not the top player. So that's a cool role. You still have ownership of the German market? No?
So we
Okay.
hired a replacement who's much better than me. He joined earlier this year, and he's doing really well. So and then I moved into the EMEA role, which I love, and it's also again it's such a broad region, so many interesting markets.
Yeah.
Like a similar feel to APAC in some ways of that different markets and different focuses. And again, we've got a really strong customer base, really strong team here. So yeah, really exciting to see the work we're doing in EMEA.
Yeah, great, great. Okay, let's go move into that's the intro's kind of done. Let's move into the actual questions. How do you balance the complexity of multiple markets in EMEA with the need for a unified GTM strategy?
So I think it's important to have a unified go-to-market strategy, but there needs to be space for the local nuances and for understanding how markets work. And I think what's really important is to not go into a market forcing assumptions from previous markets. What works in the UK isn't necessarily what works in Germany. So I think you need to be open to learning and open to adapting. But there are similarities. Your go-to-market can be consistent, but I think it's about figuring out where to adapt it. So I was thinking about something like discovery, and in some markets, running discovery sessions is quite hard because customers don't know what they want. So you need to show them and do more storytelling and do a bit more showtime and say, look, this is what different businesses are doing in your industry. This is what good looks like, and build discovery from that. And then there are other markets and other businesses where you can go in and ask them questions and they can say to you, this is exactly what our pains are. These are our key objectives. These are the key KPIs that we're looking at. You still need to do discovery. So you still in your process need to have discovery, but the way you would do it in each market would be different. So I think the unified go-to-market strategy has to take place, but it's just about understanding, okay, if you need to tick the discovery box, how are you going to do it in that market? And I think that's applicable across the whole process. And it's something that, coming into EMEA, and EMEA is such a broad region where you think of how Nordics works, how Southern
Yeah.
Europe works, how the Middle East works. They're completely different markets. So what's really key is to also have local experts and people who understand customers as well and understand how they operate and being able to get feedback. And what I love about the team that we have is, we've got lots of people on the ground in the markets, and they will say, look, Daniel, in the Middle East, you need to do it this way.
Mm.
It needs to be done that way. And then we need to figure out how we adapt to those markets as well. So I think often with revenue leaders and go-to-market teams, we try to build systems and quite fixed processes and quite fixed ways of working. But I think we need to adapt to the markets that we're operating in as well.
Interesting. And where has that been? You gave the example there of the Middle East. Has it taken longer to adapt in your scenarios? Or where have you seen sort of some of the best success?
Middle East has gone really well. And we've got a few people in Dubai, so there's been a lot of growth
Mm.
there. I don't think there's a specific region where I'd say it's been harder to adapt. The Middle East is a key one because there are nuances. There's some challenges in certain markets to do with data localization and how that works that you
Yeah.
need to keep in mind. So there can be some restrictions to consider there. But there's not one market that I would say, oh, that one's been tricky. I think they're all relatively similar. What is interesting is customer buying behavior, and there are markets where customers are comfortable buying from overseas and
Mm.
some where there aren't. So we have most of our team that's selling into Nordics is based in the UK, and in
Yeah.
Nordic comfortable with that. In Germany, they wouldn't be. You need to have someone on the ground. So it's interesting to consider, when do you have people on the ground and which markets actually allow you to buy or to engage with them from overseas versus you needing to be on the ground as well. And that can be it's an important point to consider with growth, but that can be something that slows down your growth because your customers will saying, well, unless you have a team on the ground, we don't want to speak with you.
It's like they're almost feeling you out how committed you are to the market, which is what I find with over my experience quite a big barrier to entry in terms of allowing a nucleus of employees to go about their work for at least 12 months, especially if you're selling to enterprise, with
Mm.
probably quite little return, potentially. Yeah, it's interesting, very interesting point that. How do you decide? So probably leads me into the next one. How do you decide when to double down on a market versus when to pull back?
I mean, you've got to be seeing wins, I think, simply put. I think if you're winning and you're retaining customers, if you've got strong partners, you'll feel the energy. But interestingly, I do think customers will ask you. They'll say, when are you opening an office here? Do you have an office here? How many people do you have on the ground? Like, you'll get feedback from teams. But you do need to be seeing growth. Like, you need to be seeing that. And I'd say consistent growth. There's a graveyard of technology companies that have tried to launch in the US, and
Yeah,
they've just spent so much money, or they've got huge VC or investments, and then try to open in the US and come back with their tail between their legs because they've not really sussed out the market. I'm probably more of a cautious person, so I like the idea of try to understand how much can we see remotely and how can we see
yeah.
from not being in the market, and then if we're starting to see good growth, good retention, and demand from customers where they're saying, look, actually, you should be here, and they're giving you the feedback, then I think that's when it's the time to step in.
Okay, cool. And how do you keep alignment between sales, marketing, and customer success at scale?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, we you organized a great roundtable dinner a month or so ago, and this was
Yeah,
something that came up actually, and
it did.
it was interesting to understand how the different businesses are trying to get alignment and some of the friction that's there. Simply put, I think you need to have mutual targets as much as possible between those teams. Some cases it's not going to be possible, but I think as much as you can, especially between sales and marketing, and
Mm,
things like pipeline generation is a really obvious one where sometimes you have businesses where marketing are responsible for opening opportunities, not necessarily opportunities closed, and you can see how that causes friction. But I would say mutual targets. It's really important to have people who are across multiple areas. So roles like mine, where as a revenue leader, I'm across sales and client success, I think
yeah.
is key. And revenue roles where they're just sales focused, I just think you'll have two teams that operate in silos as opposed to having someone who's across all of them. And it's really important to identify the areas of overlap where the teams are connected, and just to make sure that we're making those areas smooth, and we're making sure that those areas work really closely together. So we have lots of regular sessions with between sales and marketing to talk about top of funnel, which are the key accounts that we're focusing, which are the key regions we're focusing on. So like we spend time on that. And then if I look at sales and client success, handovers between the sales process and client success process, like that's a separate conversation that we look into and to make sure is going smoothly. I think it's really about bringing the teams together, and we have regular team meetings, we have regular town halls just to share what's going on and what the results are. So I think a lot of it's about communication, but it has to be very intentional. You really have to make the effort, and if the targets are aligned, then the teams will move in the same direction as well.
How often is the kind of, in your opinion, the correct cadence on this stuff? Like weekly, bi-weekly?
I think it depends on the topic. For some of the more working topics, like say top of funnel, we have weekly top of funnel meetings,
Yeah, yeah.
and it's half an hour, I think half an hour to 45 minutes. And that feels like a good regular cadence. And it means that it's quite hands-on, it's very tactical, and it's very much, these are the areas of focus, these are the activities that the teams are running. I also really feel that if you have a meeting once a week and it's very much a working meeting, if you can get it done in 20 minutes instead of half an hour or 40 minutes, great, then you move on with your time. Whereas if it's every other week, it can stretch and feel too long. For the handover meetings, we review them monthly, and then we have a quarterly town hall, which is a overview of the results, what performance has been across all of the different key KPIs that we have, so everybody sees that. Then we usually do a win story, and then we do department updates as well. So each department would stand up and say, you know, in marketing, this is what's happened in Q3, this is what the focus is on Q4, and it just means that everybody hears that all at once. So yeah, that's how we structure those meetings.
Keeps it all accountable and transparent in terms of activities. Yeah, yeah, that's cool. How do you identify and develop the next generation of GTM leaders in your region?
Yeah, so it's an area that I'm really passionate about, and leadership, I think it is a lot about posture. It's a lot about ways of working. I don't think it's just job titles. And it's not just about having a senior job title as well. And one of the mistakes that we've made in the past at Emarsys is probably over-indexing on people management as a development area versus people becoming specialists in the work that they do. Often what's happened is when people have wanted to progress, they've said, well, I want to move into a team lead role or into a more senior role. And we've been spending a lot of time over the last few years to really look at that specialist track, and that what it means to be a leader doesn't necessarily mean managing people. It can be being a
Yeah.
specialist in the work that you do. And then also obviously taking on certain ways of behaving as well. Importantly, though, we need to make sure that our teams have development opportunities, that they have development responsibilities and projects that they can get involved in. And we need to figure out actually who wants to be a leader. Some people want to just come in, do a really good job, get things done and move on. And some people want to do more. We're very transparent as well in communication, and we have regular meetings where we talk about key talent, we talk about who's key to retain, people who we know want to step up as well. So it's a very proactive conversation, and we're quite transparent with feedback as well. But I think it's something that you really need to own. It needs to be quite a hands-on conversation, otherwise it won't happen. And looking at Emarsys, the large majority of people who've moved into leadership roles have been internal promotions. Myself, like so many of our leaders have come from being in AE or CSM roles and moving up. So there's definitely the opportunity to progress from within, and that's something we really promote.
Yeah, it's great that it's so deliberate, and I think that's testament to the top of the conversation that you had, which was around 10 years regularly being 4, 5, 6 years, which is great, which is really good actually. Um, okay, and what's the best sort of recruitment decision you've made in your career and why?
Yeah, so it's an interesting one. If I could answer with two answers, one is personal for me and one is, I guess, a hiring one. Recruitment decision for me personally was I left a master's for a year, and then rejoined a year later. That
As well.
was leaving and rejoining. If I could group those into one decision, it was probably the best. I think it was good to leave. It was, an opportunity to move into my first MD role when I left. It was a different space. It was technology consulting, really
Yeah,
innovative company. It was a really good area to work in. And then when the option to come back came up, initially I thought, not sure, step backwards, why would I do it? But then it was a really exciting role. It was a MD role. It was to cover Hong Kong and Southeast Asia. And it felt like it was moving forward. It didn't feel like a step back. So I was really happy that I left and I got other experience. I think it also made me maybe a bit more sought after by Masters, the fact that I'd left. I think they were like, oh, okay, let's try and get him back. So that doesn't
yeah,
never hurts. Although I don't say that to my team. And it was good. It's good to get other experience. And I loved where I went. It was great. There wasn't anything wrong with it. But rejoining was great. And I'd never look back. That was 6 years ago now. And it was the best decision I ever made. From a hiring perspective, I've been fortunate enough to work with brilliant people, and I love working with talent, developing talent. I would say, it's probably an AE who we hired, Pablo. We hired Pablo 20, he's going to hate me not knowing, but probably about 2013. And he was different to other AEs that we hired. He was more academic, yeah, he had a very different energy to him. He wasn't that type of like sales guy approach. He was very measured, very considered. He really thought about things, and also very like clearly very intelligent, which is not to discredit the other who are also smart guys. And really passionate, energetic, hardworking. And he is from Ecuador, was in London, and he said, "Look, I'm going to open our LATAM office. That's my
oh,
goal.
cool.
I'm going to do that." And he did. Like, to his credit, he did. Like, he opened our office there. He's now the head of Americas, so he's in my equivalent role, but covering North America and LATAM. And like another really, really great example of someone who has had
Yeah.
like amazing career at Emarsys, but definitely the best person, best decision from a hiring
Yeah,
perspective.
yeah, yeah. What's the time frame that he's gone from seller to that kind of level of role?
He would have moved into RVP LATAM role after about 5 years, would be my guess, and then probably another 4 years after that to move into the head of Americas,
Wow,
which is I mean,
it's a
it's
huge
about
role, yeah. Yeah,
it's,
huge.
it's a huge role, and he's doing incredibly well. Like now, obviously based in the US.
Yeah.
really well. And there's lots of examples of people like that at Emarsys who have just had great success, but they've really brought the energy and they've
Yeah.
worked really hard as well, so they deserve it.
Yeah, cool. That's a really nice story. In your experience, what separates good salespeople from great ones in the EMEA market?
I don't think it's market specific. I don't think it's just about me. I think it's general to
Yeah,
all sellers. You have to be a value advisor. Customers have to want to speak with you. They have to want
yeah,
to get your opinion. They have to trust you, and you need to be someone that they want to spend time with.
yeah,
I've seen AEs where very rarely, but a customer has said, like, don't bring that person, like, don't bring that person into the room. And you just think, well, if that's the feedback from the customer, then this person can't be a great AE because the customer doesn't want to spend time with them. So customers have to fundamentally, value your opinion, and you also need to be able to give good, honest feedback. We've had some of our best AEs would have customers calling them and they'll say, actually, this isn't the right time for you to be using Emarsys. Like, you should stay with what you're using now, give it another year, and then let's speak then. So it's really about the value you can provide.
mm,
You have to understand the solution that you're positioning. Like, you really need to be knowledgeable. So for me, process is important. You need to understand sales methodologies. All of those things are key. But fundamentally, you need to understand your product, the solution you're offering, and you need to understand your customers, and you need to be able to build a good relationship with them. I think if you
yeah.
can't do those things, you can have the best process in the world, it just won't work.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I totally agree with that. I mean, I know it's cliche and the old analogy people buy from people, but I think even in the current market and how busy the current space is, people are making a deliberate decision to spend more time with you. And that's I know that's table stakes really, but it definitely helps. And I feel like over the 10 plus years I've been in the space, definitely the necessity to be more technical, to be able to talk about ecosystems, to be able to like actually have a credible conversation with the technical buyer, not just the marketeer or the commercial business buyer, on the other end. To some extent, obviously, there's pre-sales that help that and reduce the friction and everything else. But yeah, I think the best sellers have all three of those, and there is no compromise. And that's especially at enterprise when you're asking people in not the most stable market to part ways with big six and maybe seven figure sums.
Yeah. And to be a good salesperson, you need to be able to network. You need to be able to represent
Yeah,
the company you work for, to go and understand all of the different stakeholders and understand what their challenges are, not be too forceful, but also make sure it's progressing. So there's a lot of people elements to what you need to be able to do.
yeah, agreed, agreed. I think we're both 100% on the same page there. What?
A few people like that. We've got quite a few great sellers actually at Masters, and that's the thing that
Yeah,
stands out. People love working with them, so
yeah.
they do a really good job.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a great story you said there about, telling the client not to buy. I
Mm,
mean, so that takes, a lot of confidence, but unbelievable credibility coming off the back of that,
yeah,
isn't there?
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. What role does culture play in driving revenue growth in EMEA?
So, culture is quite an interesting choice of word, and I was thinking about it over the last few days, and I intentionally didn't want to look up what culture means or how it's defined, but I was thinking it's probably an aligned set of values across the entire company, and culture definitely determines the type of growth that you have, and I think the strength of that culture determines how consistent it is. But often we think of culture as being good or bad. Like, you have
Yeah.
good culture or you've got bad culture. I think if you have inconsistent culture, then it's going to impact on your revenue growth inconsistently. But if you have a very consistent culture across the entire organization, then it will probably line up with how you want it to impact on your revenue growth. And if I think of some technology businesses, there are some technology businesses that have, so I mean, not just in our space, we know of technology companies that have significant growth, like huge
Yeah.
revenue, but they have a really toxic culture.
Yeah.
So they're not nice places to work, but they have a toxic culture of, it might be that it's, really aggressive pricing, like undercutting competitors aggressively, or it could be like, not very great to their staff. So do they have a nice culture? No, they don't have a nice culture. But is the culture strong and consistent? Actually, it is. So I think it's just about understanding the type of organization that you have. And I think of us at Emarsys, our culture is very, people are very hardworking. There's a lot of mutual accountability. There's a lot of trust. there are high expectations in terms of quality of work.
Yeah,
Um, but the best thing I heard from our head of recruitment a few years ago, and you'll excuse my language, is that she
yeah,
said, "We hire the best, but no assholes." And I thought that was like good. She was like, we're very good at what we do. We need to be very good at what we do, but we're not going to allow a toxic environment. That's just not who we are as a company. But I don't think that you can have a very toxic culture and probably grow a lot as a company, but that's going to impact things in other ways. Like if you have really aggressive targets, really aggressive sales culture, that's going to mean that people are probably mis-selling, which means that you're going to have customers who are not really happy with the technology that they've bought. I mean, culture I think is very, very broad. It's like a very big term, but I think it has a huge, huge impact on revenue growth.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I can think of dozens and dozens and dozens of examples where you hear the stories from within. And from an outsider looking in, everything just looks brilliant, but
Yeah.
it's fundamentally broken. As you say, there's stuff, retention's a problem, and right. No, it's a special thing that is very difficult to kind of define, wrap up, put in a box, isn't it? But it's the companies that are real rocket ships manage to crack that as well as obviously all the other bits. Okay, cool. How do you foster a high performance mindset across distributed teams? I guess again, like one layer deeper than that, in a post COVID world, I think would probably be interesting.
Yeah, it's really important to still bring teams together and to make sure that you leverage face-to-face interactions at the right
Yeah,
time.
I'm just going to move a little bit because I'm blinding myself with this.
English winter sun,
I shouldn't complain, but
it's going to be
yeah,
rainy weekend. So yeah, we
yeah,
should we should enjoy it. But yeah, we really try to bring the teams together as often as possible, but
yeah,
in the right way for the right meetings. So we usually
yeah,
do quarterly reviews where we would do training sessions, we review performance. We try to do that as much in person as possible. We have regular team meetings over Zoom. We have regular calls like that. In terms of high performance, I think it's about mutual accountability as much as possible, myself included. I think it's really important that we work as a team and we figure out who's doing what, who's responsible for what, and that the teams feel the responsibility and accountability on my side as much as on them. So I really
yeah,
believe that, you need to lead. I don't want to say lead from the front, but you need to get your hands dirty. I don't think you can just sit at the
yeah,
top and just expect people to improve. We're quite transparent in our communication. We talk a lot about performance. We give really clear feedback on performance and areas of improvement as well. So I think a lot of it is about communication. And if I think of every quarter, at the end of every quarter end, I will really think about what we could have done, what
yeah,
went well, what could be improved, both across all of our teams and also myself individually. And I also ask all of the teams to present that back and say, review your previous quarter, what went well, what could have been
yeah,
improved, what are you going to change moving forward? So there's a constant culture of improving performance and having really transparent conversations. It's not to put people under pressure. It might put people under pressure, but it's really just to say, like, you need to be thinking about this. Like, this is your job. Like, you need to be thinking about how you're going to improve because
mm,
if you're not, then what's the point? Like, why are we here? Like, if you're just going to just turn up and just hope for the best, it's just not going to work. So it's something I'm really passionate about. But again, I think it's about regular conversations with the teams, making sure that becomes now that everyone knows the quarterly meetings are happening. Like, it's just every quarter, start of the quarter, I'm like, okay, when are we getting in the diary? And I really enjoy having those one-to-one sessions with the team.
I was going to say, are these with like regional leaders more so, or is it on the rep level?
On the rep level. Yeah.
Okay, okay. So you're spending your time with each of these, each.
Yeah, each of the reps. So we each one maybe an hour, 45 minutes. It'd usually be say like myself, the team lead. We had our global VP actually was in one of them where we had earlier in the quarter because she was in the region. And it's very, it's like bring your asks, like tell us what do you need from the business, how can we support
Yeah,
you more? Like it's very collaborative. It's not to scrutinize and it's not to throw people under the bus. But what I would say is when people have a plan, even if their performance has been bad, if they have a plan and they say, this is what I'm going to do, this is what I'm going to do moving forward, they always have full support. If it's someone who's had better performance, but they come with no plan or no thoughts, or they're just like, just going to see how it goes, that's when that's when the meetings don't go as well because everyone says, well, what are
yeah,
you doing?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So it
yeah.
really has to be something you, as you said, you have to drive, like you have to foster a high performance culture.
Yeah, yeah, that's super interesting. There's a big I mean, obviously, I can immediately see the value
Mm.
in terms of like alignment, that 1% every day idea, right? But I mean, that must take up, the first, almost like the first week of your quarter.
I mean,
If it's an hour rep.
yeah, I mean, it does take up time, not a week, but I mean, it's across multiple teams, and we include the client success managers as well. I think it's a time investment, it definitely is,
Yeah,
but
okay.
it's a critical one. And I also just want to understand how people think, how they're approaching their job,
Yeah,
what their mindset is, and to your previous question about identifying leaders, like I take those meetings really, really seriously because that's when I can see how they're planning to do their job, and that's when I look for talent as well because I hear them directly. I hear how they're
yeah,
working.
yeah, yeah.
So for me, I think
Yeah,
it's
that's interesting. And I'd imagine just naturally there's going to be you stitch together some common themes, which then you can enable,
mm,
and start trying to support, and then they don't become a problem anymore. That's really cool. If you could give one, I always love this question. If you could give one piece of advice to someone just starting to lead in EMEA, what would it be?
I would say you need to understand your focus markets and also the markets that you're not focusing on. I think if you spread yourself too thin, then it's going to be really hard. So, which are your priorities? Which are the markets that you're not touching? And I really underline that point. Like, where are you not focusing? Like, you might have your tier one markets and you say, in the tier one markets, we're going to do X, Y, and Z. In the tier two markets, it might be you say, in tier one, we're going to have lots of marketing events. We're going to do lots of face to face interactions. In the tier two ones, we're going to rely on partners, which means we're going to do these actions. Being open, like I think you have to be open minded and really listen and learn. The days of being someone from a bigger market going into a smaller market telling them how it works just doesn't land. As open minded as you can be, try to figure out who the local experts are. Like figure out who you can learn from, who and ask them like how does it work here. So it's you have to be curious and you have to be respectful. I think if you've got great partners and people who are local experts, you can ask them the direct questions and
Yeah,
just say, we're still figuring out this market. Is it normal to run it in this way? Is it normal to run it in
yeah.
that way? How should we do this? And they'll guide you as well because that's
Yeah, brilliant, Dan. That's awesome. Thanks so much. That brings us to the end of the I was going to say formal questions, but it sounds a bit too serious, doesn't it? But that was really, really great. And thanks for putting some thought into those answers. A little bit of fun just to finish off, like we do with all of our guests. Okay, so just first answer that comes into your head, not too much thought or pausing or ums, please. Okay, first question is favorite piece of tech or app you are using now? That's either personal or professional.
my to-do list app, which is called ZenKit to do.
All
So
right.
I use it all day long. I use it on my phone. I have it on my monitor. I always have it open. And that if I didn't have that or if I lose it, I just don't know how to do anything that I need to do in my day. That's it. All of my priorities, all my to-do lists, like everything's on it. So
Yeah, yeah, cool,
yeah,
cool.
it's
Zen kits, yeah.
ZenKit to do. It's a good tool. There's opportunities to like flag different tasks. You can schedule them for the future. You can make them recurring. Like it's pretty basic in terms of what it does, but it's what I need it to do.
Yeah.
I use it religiously.
Yeah, okay. Okay, cool. If there is anything, what keeps you up at night?
So there's not much keeping me up at night now. We're having a baby soon,
Congratulations.
so that's probably going to be the thing that keeps me up at night. But at
Yep.
the moment, no, I mean Q4, there's a lot to do in Q4. Should be a good
Yep.
festival, a lot to do, but not
Yep.
keeping me up at night. Really confident with the team.
Yeah. Good, 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 good. Do you run calendar years? So you on the final month? Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
cool. Night at the disco, night at the restaurant.
Ideally both. I think restaurant then disco, but if I had to choose, I'd probably say disco.
Okay, cool. Favorite food?
Quite basic, but I would say pizza. I just love
Ooh.
pizza. Everything else is, I like steak, I like Chinese food, but pizza is just my number one. Love pizza.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. Favorite movie?
Probably Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. I'm not sure if you've seen it.
I
It's
haven't
good.
seen it. No, I haven't seen it.
Yeah, very good movie. Great director, Michel Gondry. That's probably my favorite movie, I'd say. Hard choice, but I'd say
Yeah, cool.
consistently favorite movie. Yeah.
I'll get some interesting answers to this next one. If you could describe yourself in 2 words, what would it be and why?
I was either going to say a hard worker or I was going to say a happy person. I think I'm a relatively happy person, so I'd probably
That's
go.
good. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Okay, cool. Thank you for being very strict with the 2 words as well. We normally get a couple of sentences in response. Can you tell me about your proudest moment in your career to date? And that's either like personally or something that you've influenced as a leader.
I think stepping into an MD role for the first time was quite a big step.
Yeah,
I'd been before that in a client success director role for APAC, and then moving into the MD role where you're across everything really was a big step. And you just see things differently. You stop thinking about just your department. You're across so many other areas. So you're really thinking about the business long term. And all the roles I've had since have been similar roles, just different regions and bigger teams. So I'd say stepping into that role, and it was when I came back to Emarsys as well, and it was one of those moments where I thought like, wow, okay, this is it. This is like a big step up. So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
that was a proud moment, I'd say.
Yeah, great. Dan, that brings us to a close. So thank you very much. That loved it. I'm sure everybody's going to get lots of value from that. Look, what we'll do is we'll push that out on the socials. We'll tag you in a bit. If anybody wants to get in touch with you and learn a little bit more about what you guys are doing, I mean, great advertisement from us about everything we discussed. How is ping you on LinkedIn, I assume, or what's the best way?
Yeah,
Yeah,
LinkedIn, feel free to connect with me directly. Send me a message directly. You can go to the Emarsys website as well, but feel free to connect with me directly. And
yeah.
I really enjoyed it, Simon. Thanks
Yeah,
for
cool. Well, it was great to have you, and thanks for contributing to the series. Great to catch up as always.
likewise.
Yeah, we'll be in touch. Yeah,
Thank you. All the best. Cheers.
thanks, Dan.